Gamers, gals, and my non-binary pals, welcome to Phantasm Spiral Control. This is without a doubt one of the more weird control decks that exists in Yu-Gi-Oh history, but is a lot of fun once you sort of realize these sort of synergies and really funny interactions that this deck has. I'm going to give you guys a brief history about what this card did, a little bit of a card-by-card discussion, some tech choices, and of course some of that sweet gameplay. So, let's get right into it. So this whole deck revolves around Pacifist, the Phantasm City, a field spell that was released in Maximum Crisis alongside Zodiac of all decks. And it has two really important effects and one not really important effect. You cannot normal or special summon effect monsters the turn you activate either of this card's effects, even if this card leaves the field. Once per turn, if you normal or special summon exactly one normal monster and no other cards, add one Phantasm Spiral card from your deck to your hand. And if your opponent activates a card or effect, except during the damage step, and you control no tokens, you can special summon one Phantasm Spiral token, which is a worm, water, level 8, with 2000 attack and 2000 defense. But note that that second effect is not once per turn. Essentially how this deck is supposed to function is it has a large boss monster that you play in the main deck, which is terrible, so we're not playing it, and tokens that you're able to summon off of the Pacifist, the Phantasm City, by your opponent activating effects. And when either of those monsters are summoned, you're able to grab a search for any Phantasm Spiral card, which includes various equip spells, which are terrible, but mostly we're looking for the traps. The traps are extremely powerful cards, which all share the same activation clause with if all monsters you control are normal monsters and they have some sort of effect. Phantasm Spiral Battle is a pop for any card in the field, and Power is an infinite impermanence that also reduces the monster's attack by 1000. But additionally, what makes this really cool isn't the fact that these effects aren't once per turn, but it's the fact that if Umi is on the field, which Pacifist, the Phantasm City, is treated as, you can activate them from your hand, which is absolutely incredible. The graveyard effect revolves around the equips, but again, those are terrible, so we're not going to bother playing them, and we are going to be using the field spell, a bunch of purple cards, and a bunch of consistency boosters in order to really just play purple control. This is absolutely one of the only decks that really just sits around and does nothing and kind of hopes your opponent will get bored and leaves the match. So let's get into the card by card. We have 3 copies of Megalo Smasher X. Outside of it being a vanilla 2000 beater, it's also a water, which plays very nicely into our Goza match. Next, for consistency, we're playing 3 Card of Demise, 3 Pot of Duality, and 3 Pot of Extravagance. If you're asking why we're playing Extrav and Card of Demise in the same deck, it's because, again, this deck is terrible. We're playing 1 Terraforming in order to search out the 3 Pacifist, the Phantasm City. This deck sort of lives and dies by seeing this card, and you really need to see this card as soon as possible. You can sort of stall out with the floodgates, but again, Pacifist is just going to be your main game plan for getting offensive pressure and really accumulating those resources. Pacifist, note that the second effect, to summon a token, is not once per turn. So if your opponent uses something like a Raigeki to clear a Pacifist token, Pacifist will trigger on the new chain and summon another token. If they activate Econ to take control of your token, guess what will trigger on the new chain Pacifist. Note that the search is once per turn, but the summon of the token is not, so don't get too worried when your opponent smashing grounds a vanilla monster, I guess. 4 purple cards. We are playing the search targets off of the city. 3 Phantasm Spiral Battle, the best one, and 3 Phantasm Spiral Power. Not really that good, but it's searchable and it's negation, so we're playing it anyways. Obviously, some builds might cut this down to 1 or not even play it at all, but I think that just having as many targets as possible to cycle through is really important for this deck, being that these games really do last long, and every single card does matter. Speaking of cards that matter, we are playing 3 Torrential Tribute. Who cares about our token getting wiped when we can just summon another one? For Solemns, we are playing 3 Solemn Judgment and 3 Solemn Strike because they're the best. 3 Skill Drain because we hate having fun. 3 Goes and Match because we also hate having fun. And 3 C Stealth Attack. This is sort of the low-key win con of this deck. When this card is activated, you can activate an Umi from your hand or graveyard, which includes, of course, Pacifist the Phantasm City. So if it got something like Nightmare Phoenix or Mystical Space Typhoon, you can just activate it again, and it has 2 effects. Once per turn, you can banish a water monster you control until the end phase of this turn. Face-up spells and traps you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, which is really important for protecting pacifists and your floodgates from being destroyed by stuff like Twin Twister or Harpy's Feather Duster, and Lightning Storm even. And additionally, at the start of the damage step, which is not once per turn, if you're a water monster whose original level is 5 or higher battles an opponent's monster, you know, say a Phantasm Spiral token, destroy that opponent's monster. This card reads exactly as should all construct, and your opponents will run into this because they do not understand how to read cards. For our extra deck, who cares? Some additional tech spots that you can flex into the deck include the Mech Knight Avram line. You are able to play Avram, which can be special summoned off of Real Legacy Memory in order to get it onto the field for free, sort of bounce it back during the end phase and get 2 searches off your Phantasm Spiral battle. Note that this does have a little bit of nombos with Gozen Match, so you might want to consider cutting the Gozen Match if you want to play this package. If you want to really find your field spell, you could play cards such as Planet Pathfinder and Metaverse, but personally I feel like they take a bit too much space in the deck. Metaverse I 100% would play, but I don't own Metaverse, so, you know. Fossil Dig is obviously a searcher for Megalo Smasher. Again, I don't own it, but if you really want more consistency, you can play it. Maybe cut down on like a Card of Demise or a Pot. You can experiment with floodgates, stuff like Kaiser Coliseum, and There Can Be Only One are really good additions. Again, There Can Be Only One can be played instead of the Gozen Match if you are deciding to play Avram. And Waking the Dragon is really just sort of a cheeky card if your opponent is playing like Lightning Storm, and you could just like put this in and summon like a Last Warrior from another planet and just sort of get off to the races. And Fist of the Unrivaled Tenyi. This is a Solemn Judgment and Solemn Strike while you control a non-effect monster that's face up, such as, you know, a token or a Megalo Smasher X, and you can negate the activation. And if it is set and destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 non-effect monster from your extra deck. And most of these will include basically just any water monster that's over level 5, because see self-attack synergy. Stuff like Man-Eating Black Shark, Marine Beast, Aqua Dragon. Again, these cards don't really matter. Your extra deck could basically be like 15 Karibos, and it won't make any real difference because 99% of the time, you're going to be banishing them off of Extra. So, let's get into the game. So, our match is gonna be against Adamancipator. We're gonna put this shit on fast forward. This deck doesn't really matter. This is an older build of when I was playing Pot of Prosperity instead of Skill Drain. It doesn't really matter, but Skill Drain just turned out to be the overall better card. Pot of Prosperity obviously does have nombos with stuff like Extrav, but who cares? It's a monkey control deck. We're gonna take the Judgment, and unfortunately don't find the field spell right off the bat. So we're just gonna be doing our due diligence and setting for. They're gonna normal summon Doki. We're gonna Judgment this because I don't want them getting any rocks onto the field. And guess what? We find a pacifist, the Phantasm City. We're gonna activate it. We're going to banish 6 again. And what do we find off the top? But no Megalo Smasher X. Big unfortunate. We're going to use our Pot of Duality to hopefully dig just a little bit deeper. And unfortunately, we just don't find it. We're going to take the Torrential Tribute. Again, just setting up interaction for our opponent is really important. They're going to normal the Doki. They're going to activate the Koakai Mirror Supplier. We're going to immediately shotgun the C-Self attack, just in case on the new chain they have something like a Twin Twister, and our C-Self attack is ready to protect our pacifists if they decide to activate it on a chain. That's not this one for some godforsaken reason. We're going to summon the token. Supplier is going to summon, add itself the Guardian. Pacifist is going to trigger, and we're going to add ourselves the Battle. Our opponent's going to pass it over to us. We're going to see self-attack, run over the card. They're going to normal summon a Doki, pass it back to us, and we're going to smack them for 2,000. 3 more attacks to go. They're going to normal Seeker. They're going to go... We're just going to pop it. Again, they're going to Harpy's Feather Duster us. We're going to chain the C-Self attack to banish our token. Again, tokens can't be banished face down, but they can be banished face up, so we're going to be able to protect everything that's not our Phantasm Spiral power from the Harpy's Feather Duster after we flip up the Gozen Match. So power's gonna go. We're going to summon a new token. They're going to activate Maxi, which is, you know, I guess it's Upstart Goblin. We're going to summon the token. We're going to add another Spiral Battle, and you're going to see a lot of this. They're going to set, we're going to run it over. They're going to use Tackle Crusader on our C-Stealth attack, but it doesn't really matter because we can just set it again. We're just going to shotgun the C-Stealth just in case. We're going to run over their card. They're going to Monster Reborn. We're going to C-Stealth attack just so on the new chain, because we don't control a token, and because an effect was activated on our opponent's side of the field, or in general, we're going to get the token and the search. We're going to grab the Phantasm Spiral power. They're going to try to use Seeker. We're just going to Solemn Strike it so we can get it out of the way ASAP Rocky. And after that, they are going to set another card and pass. We're just going to be like, fuck it. I don't want to deal with this setting bullshit anymore. We draw a card in mines. That does nothing. We're going to immediately run over the set card. It is a Dragite. Sees Health Attack, makes quick work of this. And when we top deck the Megalo Smasher X, they realize they can't stall out anymore because the last card on the clock is there. They're going to concede, and we are going to take it. So, what did we learn today? That Floodgate decks are boring? Yes. Anyways, let's get into the pros and cons. Number 1, pros. This deck is really, really cheap. You have like 1 UR and 3 SRs. You obviously don't have to play the Solemn Judgment and the Solemn Strikes. They're just really nice to have. Stuff like Dark Bribe, Curse Seal, the Forbidden Spell, or more interactive based trap cards, stuff like Dogmatic of Punishment, work especially well and better in specific instances. But of course, you can build this deck extremely easily on a budget. 2, Floodgates are good. Who would have guessed that Skill Drain goes in match protected by Judgment and Raigeki Breaks is good? I mean, fuck it. Who would have guessed? And 3, Sea Self Attack is really funny. Who would have guessed that El Shaddoll Construct on all your monsters is a really powerful effect? And a lot of times, this will be the reason why you win certain matchups, because your opponent is just so ill-equipped to deal with anti-removal and battle protection in this degree. And the cons. 1, this deck is so slow. You guys saw it. We basically couldn't out our opponent just setting and passing. 2, Pacifist relies on our opponent to interact with us. If our opponent is going first, you know, just like in general, or refuses to commit any plays that activate effects, such as inherently special summoning a block dragon, our Pacifist isn't going to be able to trigger. We're not going to get any token. We're not going to get any searches. We're not going to catch any dubs, and we're not going to catch any bitches. And lastly, do you really want to play Floodgate Control? I mean, this is probably the worst shell for Floodgate Control that I have ever possibly seen. But again, it's still so boring. It's still so slow. But Pacifist, the Phantasm City, is a really funny card to resolve alongside Sea Self Attack. If you want to sort of test this fun interaction, I would say build this deck. It really doesn't cost you anything, and you probably have most of these cards anyways. That's going to be it for me. I've been Stevie Blunder. Be sure to not play into Pacifist, I guess, and that's going to be it for me. See ya.